Hello, everybody. I hope that your day is going well and that you're ready to embark on this new academic journey with us today. It is my sincerest hope that you not only achieve all of the personal and academic goals you've set for yourself, but also exceed them. And we are here today to help you on your path to studying at your dream college or university in the United States. As many of you may already know, my name is Victoria and I'm the outreach coordinator for the Education USA network here in Ukraine. And Education USA is, of course, a US Department of State network of over 430 international student advising centers across the world. And we are also the official source on US higher education, always striving to offer accurate, comprehensive, and unbiased information about opportunities to study at accredited colleges and universities in the United States. So do not hesitate to reach out to us and ask any of the questions that you may have about studying at an institution in the United States, and we'll be sure to help you on your path to success. Thank you so much for joining our today's session dedicated to highly selective admissions with a specific focus on the University of Chicago. As some of you may already know, applying to US universities is quite different from that in Ukraine, and we're here to help you with any step of the process and answer all of your questions from beginning to end. So today, as I've already said, we're going to talk about the admissions process, focusing in particular on how to make your admission really stand out among the pile of applications that US colleges and university receives every year. And there is no better way to find out than directly from an admissions officer. So thank you so much for being here with us, Bernice Campos. Bernice is admissions counselor at the University of Chicago, and she will give you an inside scoop on what admission officers at highly selective US universities really look for in an application and how they make their final decision. Bernice, it's a pleasure to have you here with us, and please take it away.
Thank you, Victoria. That was a great introduction. Like Victoria said, my name is Bernice Campos. I'm an admissions counselor at the University of Chicago. I do have a PowerPoint presentation ready to go where I will be talking a little bit more about the university in depth with the academics aspect of it, and a little bit more about the community and housing, and then we will dive into the admissions process and the application process as well. I'm assuming that's where most people will have questions, and please, if you do, feel free to send them in, and then we will cover those at the end. I really am here as a resource, so if you do have any questions, I want to make sure that I'm able to help you, or at least direct you to someone who can help, or where those answers may be. But yes, we can get started with the presentation. Awesome. So here you just have a little bit of a bird's eye view of what campus looks like. If anybody is a fan of Harry Potter, we do have a lot of people who compliment our architecture and compare it to Harry Potter world. So that's a little fun fact there for you. All right, so just to give a little brief overview of what the university looks like in terms of size, demographics, things of that sort. We are a medium-sized institution. To be more specific, we're a private liberal arts institution. What that liberal arts aspect means is that students are able to kind of dive into a variety of different disciplines, where when you apply to the university, you're applying to what we call the college. That's kind of the umbrella of what the college looks like as an undergraduate school. So you're not necessarily applying into one specific program to be exact. Some schools do have a little bit of a different process where you are applying to the business school, you're applying to the biology school, whatever it is. With us, that's not going to be the case. You can apply undecided. So if you don't know what you want to major in right away, that's perfectly okay. A lot of times that is the case with many of our students who apply and are admitted. And I'll cover a little bit more about what that track looks like a little bit further into the presentation. But it is important to note that we do not necessarily admit students by major. It is perfectly okay to be undecided or to have a lot of different interests, and then you'll have a lot of flexibility and lots of time to kind of narrow those interests down later down the line or later down your 4 years. So we currently have about 7,000 undergraduate students. We have a very diverse student body on campus where we have all 50 states represented within our undergraduate student body class, as well as over 100 different countries. So we're very fortunate to be able to recruit students from all around the world. Many people like me, being admissions counselors, we cover different territories. I specifically don't cover international, unfortunately. I'm stuck in the United States and I cover California. So I can't complain too much about that, but we do have regional reps that cover different areas of the world, who would be the people who do the first read of your application. And I'm jumping all around, but that is something that I'll cover a little bit more further into detail throughout the presentation. But very diverse student body class. A little fun fact here, the international students complete about 25% of the university student body. So we have a really good, a really pretty high number there of international students on our campus. We also do conduct a lot of research. So we consider ourselves to be a liberal arts institution, but we're nested within a larger research university. We have a lot of research that goes on in our campus, lots of really great things that have been discovered through our students. So although students are, of course, taking classes, doing research on campus, many of them are fighting real world problems, whether that is that they have discovered some cool new things through research, or some of the classes as well. They're very hands-on, where they're actually working with the community in Chicago, or really a lot of different opportunities within internships as well, where students are actually doing real-world work, not just being students on campus. But of course, that is going to be a large component of their experience at UChicago. A lot of our class sizes are going to be smaller in size. So although we are a medium-sized school, our student to faculty ratio is going to be 5-1. And that is because we do consider our classes to be very much for students to learn from each other, where we, of course, will have a professor that is going to be teaching the classes and is going to be there for assistance and be a resource for students when learning. But many of the classes are going to have 25 students or lower, 85% of those to be exact. So that is going to be a lot more intimate classroom space, where students are going to be discussing text, they're going to be discussing different things in the classroom, learning from each other. A philosophy within UChicago is that students aren't necessarily taught what to think, but more how to think, how to be critical thinkers, and kind of tackle those things through different opinions that are shared through the classroom in a respectful way. And students do have a lot of flexibility in terms of how they tackle different classes and different projects within the classes as well. So a few things to note here, a little fun facts, a few numbers to share, is that a lot of really great things have come from UChicago. We have been pioneers in quite a few different things, whether, again, it has been through research or it has been through different scholars. We currently have 7 current faculty members that are Nobel Prize winners, and 97 Nobel Prize winners that are affiliated with the institution, with a lot of other great things that we have had students again, be part of, that have brought really great accolades to UChicago, and be resourceful, and just a lot of great things that have happened on campus, and then for students who have left UChicago as well. All right, so to dive in a little bit more about the curriculum, this is going to be really important because, again, like I've mentioned, we do have a liberal arts interdisciplinary curriculum that we offer at UChicago. So our curriculum is going to be split up into 3 different portions. The first portion that we're going to cover here is going to be the core curriculum. That really is the foundation of our liberal arts aspect, and also the foundation to taking higher level classes within the 4 years that students will later take on. So the core curriculum is actually going to be built of 8 different subject areas or disciplines that students will be required to take classes in. That is going to cover the humanities, the social sciences, foreign languages, arts, civilizations, mathematics, physical and biological sciences. And really that does allow a lot of flexibility even within those areas. An example I always give students is that some students are very eager to take just a general chemistry class, where others kind of like me, who's not very fond of just STEM-based classes or just not very fond of chemistry in general, there are other offerings that will still allow you to complete those requirements. A great example I always give is that there's a class called the Chemistry of Food. So that one would still allow you to fulfill one of those requirements. But the lab actually for that class is students cooking and kind of viewing what the chemistry of cooking looks like. So it is a little bit of a different approach to the class, but it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of different options within all of those disciplines again. So not all students are going to be taking the exact same classes, although those are 8 subject areas that are required for students to complete as a graduation requirement. Within the core, it again does allow for students to do a lot of exploration. So I did mention earlier that we have a lot of students that come in undecided. We're also on the contrary, we also have a lot of students that come in with a lot of different interests, and it's hard to narrow down. So with the core curriculum, this allows for students to not necessarily let go of all of those interests if that is what they wish to do. So if, let's say, some students might be interested in biology, but also very interested in the arts, they will still be able to fulfill all of those interests with, again, the core, or also within the flexibility of taking many different classes that even allows them to either double major or major and minor as well. About 19 students or fewer in core discussion classes allows for students to, again, learn from each other and have more intimate classroom spaces. Most classes are, like I said earlier, not going to have more than 25 students or more. And this, again, allows for a lot of liberal discussion within the classroom that does benefit students in the long run, especially once they hit those higher level classes through either the majors or through electives. That brings me to the second part of the curriculum, which is going to be the student's major. We currently offer over 50 different majors and nearly 50 different minors for students to choose from. About 60% of students actually have a double major or a major and a minor combination. So again, we have lots of flexibility for students to be able to take on more than one thing if they wish to, even if they are in 2 complete different disciplines. Because of the core and also the third part of the curriculum, which is electives, there's a lot of flexibility in terms of the classes that students take throughout their 4 years at UChicago. Students actually do not have to declare their major until the end of the 3rd year. So many students will actually highly focus on the core curriculum the first 2 years. If they're ready to declare their first year or the 2nd year, that's perfectly fine. They're more than welcome to. But again, we allow students to kind of take a step back and do a little bit of exploration within all the offerings that we have at UChicago before forcing them to make that decision. Now, by the 3rd year, we hope that students have kind of made up their mind just to ensure that they're still able to graduate within 4 years. But many students do declare and maybe change their mind and then declare again, maybe change their mind again. But it's really great that we allow that flexibility for students to have that kind of exploration and just that flexibility in terms of the classes that they take and the curriculum that they follow. The last portion of the curriculum is going to be those electives. Students have so many different options in terms of the classes that they can take when it comes to those electives. Some students might choose to take classes that fall outside of the core curriculum or their major, and they're just more fun and intriguing to them. Maybe they have like a fun title or something, where others might just take classes that, again, will allow them to double major or add in a minor. So it really is up to the student of what they want to create for themselves and what interests they have in terms of, again, kind of gearing up to take on the curriculum that we offer and make the most out of it. So every student, again, is going to have a very different set of classes that they take depending on what their interests are and what they want to accomplish as a career or just in general what intrigues them. All right, so there are a lot of different academic opportunities on campus and off campus that students can take on. So one of the things that I do like to mention is study abroad. That is a very large component of the Chicago experience, even though you would think that it would be separate since students aren't necessarily going to be on campus. When it comes to study abroad, we currently offer over 60 different programs. I think we're close to 70 actually now. We've added quite a few throughout the last year. But within these programs, students are able to set off and take classes in a different country if they wish to. About 60% of our students actually do conduct some form of study abroad experience throughout their 4 years. And we like to say that UChicago travels with the student because there there are actually 4 different U Chicago centers around the world, located in Beijing, Delhi, Hong Kong, and Paris. And these are centers that are affiliated with the university, where there will actually be U Chicago professors that teach classes there. That's why we like to say that U Chicago kind of travels with the student and is still part of the experience. So we will definitely kind of mirror a lot of the classroom experiences that we have at U Chicago, even when students are abroad. Most of our programs are going to be 10 weeks in length. We are on the quarter system, so that is fairly different from other institutions that are typically on semesters. So the way the quarter system works is that the academic year is split up into 4 different portions. We start off a little bit later than most schools. So this time of year, we actually haven't started just yet. We start at the end of September. We go into the fall quarter and then follow into winter, then spring, and then summer. I don't want any panic from the students. That doesn't mean that throughout the summer, students will be required to take classes, but it is an option. Most students will actually take advantage of that summer quarter and maybe do a study abroad experience or do research, maybe take on an internship or simply take a break. But it is an additional time where students have the option to take classes if they wish to, although many students will do any other type of academic opportunity outside of the campus. So going back to the study abroad programs, most of them are going to be 10 weeks in length, similar to our quarter system, but there are a few other options where students can do more of an immersive experience if they wish to. So many different options within study abroad as well there. Same goes when it comes to research. So about 80% of our undergraduate students do conduct some form of research. And we really like to say that's as easy as a student just reaching out to a professor to find these different opportunities, because it really is. Oftentimes there are more research opportunities than there are students to actually fill them, because there's constant research being done on our campus. It also does really help that we have graduate students and PhD students on our campus as well. So many times our undergraduate students are able to kind of to also work with them and conduct these other forms of research if it is that they are intrigued by the research that they're doing, or it's just an area of interest for them as well. We also do have really great connections with a variety of different national labs in the United States. 2 of those national labs are actually located very close to Chicago. They're about a 30-minute drive from Chicago. So we really do take advantage of that being in our back door, where Argonne Lab is one of them, and then Fermi Lab as well. Those are 2 national labs where students do conduct research that are just in the back door of Chicago, very, very quick drive. And many students actually do matriculate to take on full-on research jobs after U Chicago at one of those 2 national labs or other laboratories around the world, since we do have those connections and have had the ability to have students kind of dip their toes in those opportunities throughout their 4 years as undergraduate students. So that does definitely help out. In addition to those different opportunities, students do have full-time academic and career advisors on campus. So there will actually be 3 main advisors that all students will work with throughout their 4 years. And these are very important people, very important resources for students, since they all have a different purpose. The first one is going to be an academic advisor. The second one is going to be a faculty advisor. And then the third is a career advisor. And every single one of them, again, is going to play a very important role in the success of the student throughout their 4 years. The first one being the academic advisor is going to be the one that helps students register for classes and kind of make those narrowing down choices on what classes the student chooses to take. And they actually work with the students before they even get onto campus, since the first time students register for classes is going to be throughout the summer before fall quarter. So they will definitely build very close bonds, very close relationships with students, since they are working with them so closely all 4 years. The second advisor is going to be a faculty advisor. This is going to be an advisor that is specific to the department of where students choose to declare their major. So if a student decides to declare their major in political science or public policy, that is going to be the department of the faculty member that the student is paired with, to ensure that that person is an expert in that field and can assist with questions regarding the career path that they want to take, or any questions regarding just those departments in general. And then the third and final advisor is going to be a career advisor. Some argue is the most important, but of course, every single one of them is going to have a purpose. And the reason that they argue that this is the most important is because this is going to be an advisor that helps you be successful even after you Chicago. So this is going to be an advisor that helps you find internship opportunities, that helps you build up your resume, or that maybe help you apply to graduate school if that is what you're looking to do after you leave Chicago. Really what the career advisor is there to assist you with is to help build up your resume to ensure that after you leave Chicago, you're still going to be able to take all the resources and everything you've learned with you and also be successful after. So many times this is the advisor that seniors work very closely with as they are kind of trying to make those plans for after graduating. So again, every single one of them is going to be very important, and it is another resource for students to have on campus. All right, so I'm quickly going to run through our housing department, our housing system, as well as different things that happen on campus, because that is going to be important. Although academics, of course, are important, when you're researching schools, you also do want it to feel like an area or a place where you will be successful socially, and that you will feel like you are part of the community and find a community that really reflects you and also that you're comfortable with. So one of the things that we have built through our university, or a way that we really try to build community on campus, is through our housing system. Like I mentioned earlier, if anybody is a fan of Harry Potter, we have mirrored or kind of replicated the sense or the system that they have with houses. So we currently have 48 different houses in 7 different residential halls. The houses all have their own name, their own identity, and their own traditions associated with it. So the houses are going to be made up of about 50 to 100 different students, and that is going to be kind of the first family and the first community that students find on campus. Within those traditions, some of them also kind of tie in a little bit of friendly competition between houses. There are 2 houses that have an annual broomball match on campus. That's a lot of fun to watch. And then some other traditions are maybe a little bit more specific to the house, where I know there are certain houses that have traditions revolving the student's birthday. So if there is a student's birthday, they might like make them a fun birthday card, or they might bake them a certain kind of cake made out of scratch. So a lot of fun ways in which the houses kind of come together separately, but also individually, to make sure that all the students are, finding different people that they can associate with and be part of a community on campus. Students are required to live on campus the first 2 years. They have guaranteed housing all 4 years, which is really great. And most students do choose to stay on campus all 4 years, but they're welcome to move off campus to live in an apartment or live in a house within the community their junior and senior year if they wish to. But again, most students typically tend to stay within our housing system because they do really enjoy it, and they have already built some really good relationships out of it, so they tend to stay. In addition to the houses, we currently offer over 400 different student organizations. Those are going to be very diverse in many different ways. That could be that they are volunteer-based, culture-based, language-based, socially based, a lot of really fun organizations that we have, and there are more than enough things that students can get involved in on campus. Every year, at the beginning of the school year, there is an RSO fair. That stands for Registered Student Organization Fair. That's what we call our clubs on campus, but there is a large fair in the quad where students are able to go out and explore what the different organizations look like and meet different students and kind of make those first connections as well, as they have just stepped foot on campus. But they are exposed to all the different things that they can be part of if they wish to be. And of course, many students are also coming up with new ideas of new organizations as soon as they step foot on campus. But there's more than enough things to get involved in when it comes to those organizations on campus. If anybody is a fan of sports, we also do offer 20 varsity sports. We are Division III schools, so that is the division that we compete with against other schools. But if anyone's like me and it really enjoys sports but isn't necessarily that competitive, we also do have intramural sports. Those are also a lot of fun, and a lot of times different houses actually play against each other. So again, you kind of see that friendly competition there, but not as hardcore as with the other varsity sports that we offer. There is a little bit of a brief list there of different student organizations that are some of our largest at U Chicago. Our university theater is actually the largest organization, and then Doc Films is one of our oldest. It's actually the oldest film organization in the United States. So another little fun fact for you there. All right, so one other thing I do want to cover when it comes to the community is going to be where we're located. As it says in our name, we are located in Chicago, Chicago, Illinois to be exact, in the United States. But more specifically, Chicago is divided into 77 different neighborhoods. The neighborhood that we are located in is going to be Hyde Park, and it's actually going to be this bottom portion down here. If you can see my cursor, it's going to be the part at the bottom where you see the really cool architecture buildings. We are approximately 10 miles south of the downtown area, which is a little bit more up north. So you can see, I think that's the Willis Tower there. You can see the Navy Pier as well by the lake, by Lake Michigan. So that is going to be the neighborhood that we're located in specifically. About 60% of our faculty live in Hyde Park. It's going to be very residential. Many families live there. Lots of different shops and different things that students can go out and explore. I know on the weekends there's also a farmer's market. So a lot of things you can explore within Hyde Park, but students are also able to explore the entire city if they wish to. We do equip our students with 2 different passes that allows them to do that a little bit easier. The first one is going to be a U-Pass. The U-Pass allows students to use all public transportation for free. So that's going to be the CTA trains and the buses, which is going to be the main way of transportation in the city. So with that U-Pass, students can get up north, they can go out west, they can really get anywhere for free. And then the second pass that students receive is going to be an art pass. That is going to be a pass that gives students access either for free or discounted access to over 70 different cultural institutions. So that could be museums or different types of venues. The Chicago Symphony Orchestra and the Art Institute are 2 of the most popular ones. So a lot of ways in which students can go out and explore if they want to leave the campus. But there's lots of ways to get involved on campus as well. So a lot of things going on in the bursting city of Chicago. All right, so now where I want to be the most detailed is going to be within the application process, because now that I've talked about all the cool things that students have access to and are able to be a part of, you want to know how to apply, right? So a lot of great questions arise from the materials that we require or just things of that sort. But I do like to give a little bit of a brief explanation of how applications are reviewed from an admissions counselor standpoint, because lots of times that usually eases students a little bit from their nerves and helps you get a little bit more of an idea of, you know, how to present yourself or how every single piece of your application is going to be important and have a purpose. So first of all, I do like to say that within our application evaluation process, we review all applications holistically. So what that's going to mean is that every single piece is going to be important and going to be considered to the context of the student. So we're not going to necessarily just look at your transcript or just look at your test scores and automatically make a decision, say, yes, the student's going to be admitted, or no, the student's not going to be admitted. That would defeat the purpose of the holistic approach. In addition to that, when it comes to bringing students to committee or just the way that applications are read, what the process looks like is the first person that's going to read an application is going to be the regional representative of that territory. So for example, I cover California. I cover Southern California, which is going to be the first read of the applications that come in from that territory. Those applications are going to be read by me. And then there will be another second reader that's going to take a second look at those applications as well, just in case I miss anything or just to have a different opinion or a different perspective from a different person. And then if a third read is necessary, if maybe our two opinions conflict, which is usually not the case, there will be a third reader that will also read those applications. And then all of those applications are taken to committee, where a committee is going to be made up of about 5 to maybe 10 different admissions counselors, and we discuss those applications. So there are going to be several different people that are going to be looking at every single application. And then when they are brought to committee, a decision is made on whether the student's going to be a good fit for the campus and the community or not. So there are going to be several different people, again, looking at every single application and taking a look at all the materials that the student is providing for us as well. So for those materials that we require, the first step to starting your application is going to be by creating a profile, either the common application or coalition application. Those are the two specific platforms that U Chicago works with. We have no preference whatsoever in what platform you choose to submit your application. We typically just suggest to use whichever one is more convenient to you. Again, we take both. That is not the case for all institutions, so it's definitely important to make sure you do a little bit of research in terms of what platform other institutions you may be interested in work with, but for us, it makes no difference. The first piece we are going to require is going to be a transcript. Within the transcript, we, of course, are going to be looking at the type of classes you've taken, how you've done, what that rigor looks like. But we are very well aware that every transcript is going to look very different depending on where the student is coming from. When we look at a transcript, we also look very closely at a school profile. The school profile is able to give us a little bit more context of what the school is offering to the students. And that allows us to, again, be able to have that context piece to the school and then also to the student, which is very important when reviewing applications. So that's going to be the first piece of material. The second piece are going to be 2 letters of recommendation. We require 2 academic letters from any form of teacher that you have had in the past. We, of course, do suggest that you ask somebody that thinks of you in a positive manner, because we are looking to read positive reviews or positive perspectives of who you are from these letters of rec. Within these letters of recommendation, we're not necessarily looking to see how you do academically, but we're just trying to learn more about who you are from a different perspective. Lots of times these letters of rec are able to give us more of an idea of how you engage with your peers, maybe the kind of characteristics you have as a student, but again, not necessarily how you perform academically. We have other ways of being able to see what that looks like, either through your transcript or through your essays as well. I do want to touch on test scores real quick, since a lot of times many questions do arise from test scores or standardized testing. So U Chicago is test optional in all regards. So that includes for SATs and ACTs, as well as English proficiency exams. When it comes to the SAT and ACT, we have been test optional since 2018. That means that the student has the option to submit their test scores if they wish to. They're not obligated to. It is up to the student on whether they choose to submit them or not. And the reason for that is because we understand that sometimes standardized testing is not the best way to accumulate the student's academic success. It's just a number, right? And also we understand that for some students, it's not as accessible as it is to others. So we, of course, do suggest if you have the opportunity to take the SAT or ACT once, go ahead and do so. See how you do. If you like to submit your scores, you can go ahead and do so, but you're not obligated to, and we do not read applications any differently if you choose to not submit them. If they're there, we'll go ahead and consider it, but if they're not, we have plenty of other materials to review within the application. All right, and now I do want to cover one other thing. We also do have a requirement for extracurriculars. So within the Common App and the Coalition app, there's going to be a 10 space list where you can include any different extracurriculars that you have been involved in, whether that has been any clubs or any volunteer or anything that you've been involved in within your community. That is additional information that you can add to your application. Now, the last pieces of materials are going to be essays, everyone's favorite, right? So within the essays, we are going to require 3 different ones. The first one is going to be a personal statement. This one is going to be very specific to who you are, using your own voice and just kind of telling a story of, again, who you are, very detailed to yourself. The second essay is going to be the Why You Chicago essay. That is going to be an essay that you just tell us a little bit more about why you're interested in U Chicago, what drew you to us, what programs are you interested in, what would you be part of if you were admitted, things of that sort to help us understand that, one, you're interested in us, and two, that you know who we are and you know what we offer. So that is going to be the second essay. And then the third and final essay is going to be our extended essay. Personally, I think it's the most fun, at least to read, and also I'm sure for students to write. Every year we release new prompts for students to choose from. Here on the PowerPoint slide on the right, you can see a few examples of some of the prompts that students choose from. Again, every year we release new prompts, so there are new ones for students to choose from, but students are welcome to choose from any of our old prompts if they wish to. There's just a small list here, but I believe now we're over 70 different prompts in. So there are many different options for students to choose. Some of those are going to be to compare apples to oranges, where's Waldo really, find X. One of the ones that was very popular last year was what wisdom would a wisdom tooth give? So a lot of really fun, open-ended questions for students to reply to. And this really does allow students to be creative in their own way and be critical thinkers in their own way as well. And like I said, they're really fun to read. So that's going to be the third and final essay of the required materials for our application. And then I do want to touch on deadlines as well. Those are going to be important to know, especially if you are planning to apply within this current cycle. So we have two important deadlines to keep in mind. The first one is going to be November 1st, which is our earlier deadline that is approaching soon. And then the second one is January 2nd, which is our second and later deadline. Within both deadlines, there are going to be two different pools that students can apply through. The first one is going to be Early Decision 1 and then Early Action. For November 1st, those two deadlines, the main difference is that Early Decision 1 is going to be a binding round. What that means is that students are going to have to formally sign a contract between their parents or guardian, their high school counselor, and themselves, because they are committing to attending U Chicago if they are admitted. Many different schools have these different binding options. It is going to be important for the student and the family to know that it is binding, of course. So they are showing us that we are their number one school. But the student also does have to keep in mind that if they are admitted, they do have to withdraw all other applications. So it is going to be important to know that context or that piece if you are intending to apply binding. For our second deadline, January 2nd, we again are going to have two different pools. We have Early Decision 2, that is an additional option to do binding. And then we have Regular Decision, which is not binding. So if you are looking into other institutions, you can definitely do Regular Decision as well. So there are 4 different pools and 2 different deadlines. Hopefully there is one option that works for you. We understand that all students do work on a little bit of a different deadline, and hopefully we are able to accommodate that with our different options and our different deadlines as well. All right, so I do want to end on talking a little bit more about financial support and financial aid. The University of Chicago is very fortunate to be able to offer both need-based aid and merit scholarships. When it comes to need-based aid for our international students, we are need-sensitive. What that means is that we do take into consideration whether the student is applying for aid or not, but we meet 100% of demonstrated need. So what that means is that after the student does submit all of the documents that we require, so that's going to be our internal worksheet, which is our international financial aid worksheet, as well as any supporting documents, we will be able to formulate a financial aid package that is accurate to the student's family household income. And again, we are going to meet 100% of demonstrated need of what that looks like. So that is why we need that additional information. In addition to that, for our merit scholarships, there are no additional materials or no additional applications that students will be required to submit. All all admitted students are automatically going to be considered for these awards. Those are going to be partial tuition awards, so students do not have to, students are going to, again, not have to submit any additional applications. These awards will usually be about $1,000 to $20,000, not necessarily covering the entire cost of tuition, but just an additional scholarship that is going to be awarded to the student based on merit. We have a few additional initiatives that we have been able to offer the last few years. The first one is going to be the second one is going to be our No Barriers program. That is going to be for any family household income that's under $60,000. We are going to meet 100% of the tuition and information regarding the cost of attendance. So there is a little bit of a difference when you do the conversion for our international families, but again, it is a very generous scholarship as well. And then for our Odyssey scholars, that is going to be for any family household income that's under $125,000. We will guarantee to pay the entire cost of tuition. So that is going to be our need-based aid scholarships for students. At the bottom here, we have a few different websites that you can visit in the case that you are having more questions when it comes to the financial support. And then on the next slide, I have a few additional emails, as well as if you haven't already joined our mailing list, you can scan that QR code or just reach out to us through email and we can get you added. But that's everything I have for the PowerPoint today. Thank you everyone for joining me, and we can move on to questions.
Thank you so much, Bernice, for your wonderful presentation. I highly enjoyed it and learned so much myself, as I'm sure our wonderful listeners at home have as well. And now we'll move on to questions. So we've got Margaret. Margaret, thank you so much for being here today. And Margaret is wondering, what's the difference between majors and minors? So maybe you can help us clarify this point.
Yeah, of course, that's a great question. So the main difference between these two is that the major is going to be the primary focus of the student's academics. The major is going to typically be what the student really highly wants to focus on. For seniors, the last year of their college experience, there will be a thesis that they have to complete. So for most students, the thesis is going to be focused on the major. The minor is going to be kind of that secondary interest, you could say, for students. Lots of times it's maybe an additional interest that the student has or something that pairs well with the major. There are no restrictions in terms of the pairings that you wish to do, but just note that the major is going to be that primary focus that the student does, typically closer to what the career path that the student wants to take is.
Thank you so much for your informative answer, and thank you, Margaret, for being with us. And we move on to the next question. So Eugenius is wondering, what's the difference between the acceptance rate of early decision compared to regular decision?
Yeah, so we don't have numbers specifically when it comes to every individual pool. Typically, we're going to be taking about 50% of the class for our earlier deadlines. That is made up of two of those pools, and then about 50% of the second comes from the second deadline. In most cases, because regular decision is our largest applicant pool, those numbers are going to be looking a little bit differently. And in most institutions that offer binding rounds, usually there is a little bit of a higher acceptance rate within those binding rounds. But again, it looks a little bit differently depending on the year.
Thank you so much for your answer, Bernice. And we've got actually another question about admission rates. So Ertem is wondering about early admission rates that are, of course, generally higher, but whether these 2 additional months are beneficial to improve your profile. And of course, he's also inquiring if you could maybe share if the selected term influences your decision.
Yeah, let me read this real quick. Great. So we understand that for some students, the binding round isn't necessarily going to be the best option, and that's perfectly okay. For that early decision one round, many times those students aren't necessarily going to be more competitive than the others. Within all rounds, we are still looking for the exact same kind of student that is competitive in all aspects and is a generally well-rounded student. However, within that earlier rounds, typically those students who are submitting early have been ready to submit since the summer, have been working on their application for a little bit longer maybe. So sometimes that is seen throughout the materials and throughout the time that they put in when it comes to when we read them. But we, of course, still take many students when it comes to our regular decision round or our early decision 2 round that is a little bit later. For some students, it is beneficial to wait a little bit more, whether it's those 2 months, to spend more time on their application again if maybe they have had a busy summer or haven't had as much time to put into the application previously. So it really just depends on the type of student and again what you're looking for. We understand that not all students are ready to commit to do that binding round. It is a big commitment. We understand that. If you want to keep your options open, that's perfectly okay. Hopefully there's a round for every student that works for them.
Thank you so much for your wonderful answer. And I would just like to add from our side, Education USA does offer free consultations and free advising to all Ukrainian students. So we would be more than happy to assist you in the admission process, help you maybe proofread your application essay, or assist you in any other questions you may have regarding the application process. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us and sign up for a free consultation. And we go on to the next question. So Ina, thank you so much for being with us. And Ina is wondering about standardized tests, in particular, whether it is possible to get a GMAT waiver for an MBA program and probably what the procedure for that might be.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So because we are working through the undergraduate admissions office, I'm not too sure if our MBA program admissions offers any waivers when it comes for the GMAT. I know specifically for us, when it comes to the SAT or ACT waivers, we don't offer those just because we are test optional. So we unfortunately wouldn't be able to provide those for our undergraduate students, but I'm not particularly sure on when it comes to the MBA programs. That question would probably be better geared towards our graduate admissions office. I can provide that email for you as well. It would just be graduateadmissions@uchicago.edu.
Thank you so much for your answer. And just to reiterate, Ina, you can always reach out to an Education USA advisor, and we'll be more than happy to put you in contact with the right international counselor to help you get the most up-to-date information for your application. Thank you so much. And we go on to the next question. So Polina is inquiring whether it is worth noting the academic side of the university in her application essay to the University of Chicago, or whether it is better to pay attention to some other features of the institution.
That's a great question. So I would definitely say it's a little bit of a balance, right? Balance in everything is perfect. I would say it's definitely worth noting your academic interests of the university, since you are going to school to learn, of course, but a lot of times when it comes to the YU Chicago essay, we want to see a little bit of everything, like how you would be part of the community, regardless of your academic interest, maybe what interests you have when it comes to those clubs that we offer. Since I mentioned we have over 400 of them, we need students to be part of those as well. So you can definitely mention your academic interest, but I would suggest also mentioning a few other things as well, as like how you'd be part of the community or what other interests you have, maybe through research or through study abroad, things of that sort that will help us better understand that that we offer all those things, that you're aware that they're there.
Thank you so much for your answer. I immensely appreciate it. And a follow-up question from Polina, and something that a lot of our students actually ask is, maybe you could say just in a few words, how does the perfect applicant for you look like? What are the things that you're looking for and keeping an eye on?
Yeah, so I do want to first preface that there's definitely not a perfect applicant. All of our applicants are going to be wonderful. But there are a few common denominators within some of the applicants that we do ultimately admit to the university. So of course, academic success is going to be one of them. We do want our students to academically be successful once they come to Chicago. So that is going to be a component of the applicant that we look at that ultimately is admitted. But also we also do look for well-rounded students that are open-minded and are creative. That is going to be important because of the curriculum that we offer and also the different resources and the different things that we offer either through research or through internship opportunities. Many times we also do have a lot of great applicants that are highly focused in one area, but we like to see that they're at least open to the idea of, taking classes through the core and taking on that liberal arts interdisciplinary curriculum, or maybe they have an interest in STEM but are also very curious about the humanities side of things, or they have an open mind, and really that is what we ask for, and that is something that we highly look at, because sometimes students who are highly focused in just one thing and aren't open to other possibilities or other things, they're not really going to be happy with what we offer at UChicago. So those are a few little pieces that we look at for an applicant, but we have a very diverse student body, like I've mentioned a few times. So there's not going to be one specific thing that ultimately makes us decide that the student is going to be admitted. It's a holistic approach, and it's an entirety of an application that kind of draws us to that decision.
Thank you so much, Bernice, for your wonderful answer, and thank you, Polina, for your questions and for being so active here today. And we've got another question from Eugenius. So Eugenius is wondering if you could maybe share some advice on writing the personal statement essay, and what would be the most popular mistakes that applicants make in their personal statements?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's actually a lot of really great advice that I can offer for this. We have a series of different workshops that we sometimes work with students in terms of the personal statement, because I know this is usually the most daunting or the most nerve-wracking one for students, because sometimes it is difficult to talk about yourself, and I completely understand. So one of I think there are 3 T's that we sometimes cover. So the first one is tone. The second one is, it's tone, type. I'm blanking on this third, but ultimately when it comes to the personal statement, there are going to be, it is going to be a difficult one to write, of course, but we are asking that you are focusing on yourself. There is a joke that I sometimes use in my info session where sometimes the student, kind of talks about a family member or a family pet, and then by the end of the essay, we want to admit grandma, or we want to admit the family cat, because it kind of trickles more into learning more about the family pet than it is about the student. I would definitely advise, I know Victoria, you've mentioned that you guys offer a lot of help when it comes to making those edits, or, offering additional help or an additional set of eyes for those statements. Although that is wonderful, definitely try to stick to your own voice. Within the other ones, definitely it is a little bit easier to make a few little tweaks and such, but it is important for us to know, how you would talk about yourself, how you would talk about your own experiences, your own life, things of that sort that will help us better understand who you are. The topic is also very important. That's my third T, just came to me. So the topic, of course, the topic and tone. Sometimes students do talk a little bit more about challenges that they have maybe faced, but it is important to, keep it as a lesson that you've learned, keep it a little bit more positive, being able to. So it really is all in the way that you present yourself, and kind of how you're able to perceive yourself for another reader to then read. That was a great question.
Thank you so much for such wonderful advice. I highly appreciate it, and I think it will be a lot of help for many of our students. And thank you, Zhenya, for being with us and for asking your questions. So the next question we've got is actually from Irina. Irina, hi, thank you so much for being with us. And Irina is wondering if there are any specific points and information that should be mentioned while writing an essay for postgraduate or graduate studies.
Yeah, so within our application, specifically, since we're an undergraduate school, there wouldn't necessarily be any areas where you would have to specify if you are interested in graduate school after attending, U Chicago at an undergraduate level. We definitely do have some students that briefly mention that they're interested in then going to Booth, our school of business afterwards. But I think you do have to definitely be a little bit conscious of how much time you spend on talking about that, since through our application, you're applying to our undergraduate school, and then applying to postgraduate and graduate school comes a little bit later. Of course, through your 4 years working with the different advisors, they would be very, very, very helpful in kind of advising either when the applications are released, kind of going through that process again when it comes to graduate school after you complete your undergraduate studies.
Thank you so much for your questions. Really helpful. And thank you, Irina. And we've got the next question from Lolita. Lolita, wonderful. Thank you for being with us today. And Lolita is wondering what maybe is the main qualities that you seek in your application students or in an aspiring student, maybe any buzzwords to look out for?
Yeah, definitely creativity. I think that's like one of the words that I find myself using a lot when I think about U Chicago students. Like creativity and open-mindedness are typically the top two. But we definitely have a lot of really great students that are just seeking to learn more, seeking to explore more, and they really do, and they're able to when they come to U Chicago, whether that is their interests, whether it is their hobbies, their career plans, a lot of different ways. But typically the words I think of are creativity or open-minded.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful answer and for inspiring our students today. I immensely enjoyed our meeting and learned so much myself, and it was a definite highlight of my week. I would
Thank you.
Yeah. It's wonderful to have you with us, Bernice, and to all of our listeners with us today. It's amazing to have so many young students interested in education in the United States. And once again, do not hesitate to reach out to us, whether it be reaching out via a free consultation or just send us an email with any questions you may have, and we'll be more than happy to answer all of them. We've got actually one final question, if you do not mind. So Lida is wondering, are electives also graded? And can you just attend lectures in any field that you're interested? So maybe you can share some insights on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So all elective classes are still going to be graded in terms of test. There's still going to be a grading system within them, but you are not limited at all in terms of the electives you choose to take. Many students take classes that aren't necessarily within their major or their minor or within the core and are just fun and intriguing to them. So there's a lot of really fun elective classes that students can take, or vice versa. If there's maybe some other discipline areas that they're just intrigued by, they can take classes within those and then count them as elective credits. So although there's still going to be homework, there's still going to be exams per se, there's a lot of flexibility in you choosing the classes you choose to take. So you're not limited in any way there.
Thank you so much, Bernice, for such a wonderful and engaging presentation. As I mentioned, I really enjoyed cooperating with you. And to finish off, maybe there are any last-minute words of wisdom you'd like to share with us students?
Yeah, of course. So I completely understand that the application process can be scary, and it's a long one for sure, but just know that there are plenty of different resources out there for you. Victoria, I know you're a wonderful resource to all your students as well. But all admissions counselors, whether it's that you're looking into applying to U Chicago or to other institutions in the U.S., there's a lot of really great information on our websites. Our contact information is all on our website, and the reason it's there is for you to access it, right? When it comes to U Chicago specifically, we are always happy to answer emails. We also offer a lot of different virtual programming. So I know sometimes students feel limited because they can't necessarily be there with the counselors or meet in person or visit campus, that is perfectly okay. We really do try our best to be engaging and be able to engage students virtually, and just have those resources there for students so they can still learn more about UChicago. Many of our virtual programs are highly focused with students engaging in forums like this, where it's like a Q&A session. We have different panels with current students. So if you'd like to hear more from a current student perspective, that's another really great way to engage. There's a lot of different ways and a lot of really great resources that you can access that will hopefully make the process a little bit easier and a little bit less difficult or nerve-wracking. So Victoria and I are always really great resources for you, but there's plenty of other resources on other colleges' websites as well. So hopefully that eases your nerves a little bit.
Thank you so much, Bernice, for sharing your knowledge and for your words of inspiration. And to all of the students listening to us today, I would just like to say that today you've made the first step on your journey to success and to studying at a US university or college. So congratulations, stay safe, and stay with education, you say. See you next time. Bye.